Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Stories That Inspire Us / the author series. My name is Janice Malillo, your host, and I want to let everyone know, as I usually do, I am also simulcasting through the Wisdom Audio app, and I welcome and thank all of my listeners who have hopped on. Today, of course, I have an amazing guest, and if you can see me on video, I'm like all excited. The coffee may have a little something to do with that. However, here's the deal. My guest really wrote such an amazing book. I don't know how to adequately describe it, but I'm going to tell you this. It's a sort of memoir, autobiography with a lot of twists and turns from her experience in her line of work, but also the intuitive part of what she does, not only as a mother, but in her profession. It was mind-blowing. So without further ado, I am so excited to welcome the amazing Stacey Webb. Welcome to the Stories podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I have been excited all day.
So as some of our listeners can tell, obviously she has a little bit of an accent, stumbling over my words already, an accent. And this is the beauty of live podcasting, by the way. It is 7 a.m., as I said, in where I am in the States, in the Northeast, and 9 p.m. where you are. So I want to thank you for really adjusting your schedule to be with me and with us today. So I want to start out by, I have so many questions. As I mentioned, your story is kind of a memoir, autobiography, and you really get down to the nitty-gritty of your story. You're very raw, authentic, and real. And what I found refreshing about reading your book, and as I explained, I haven't read the whole book, I've read a lot of the book, but what pointed out to me were several different things. It's not your typical memoir. It's not your typical autobiography. You really approach it from a very intuitive aspect. Of course, the name of your book is The Intuitive Detective. So why don't we start there? So the first question really is, why did you decide to write this book?
Yes, well, I've always wanted to write a book. I always envisioned that I'd write about 2 or 3 books growing up. And very early in my working life, in my late teens, beginning of my 20s, I'd joined the police force here in Australia, and my career became policing, where I thought I couldn't be anything else but a police officer. It became my identity. You get introduced to somewhere and, hi, this is Stacey and she's the police officer. You always kind of get referred to your occupation more than yourself. And I also attached myself to that identity as well. And so when I would write at home, it was just merely for nothing else but then writing in a book myself, because I didn't think that I could be anything more than being a police officer. And as I was working on my own healing journey, I, being a police officer and for over 16 years now, at that point, I've seen and experienced a lot. I've seen my colleagues experience a lot, and some of my colleagues, their mental health had took a really big turn to a point where they either couldn't work as a police officer, they couldn't work at all, or some of them had also taken their life. And I didn't want to get to that point. And so I actively took steps for my own mental health. And as that was happening and I was working on my own healing journey, I one day just started writing in a notebook. I love writing. I just started writing, and then it morphed into typing it in a Word document. And I didn't think of anything more. It was just more stories of my life. And I'd just write it down and would have a little bit of a ... for the next story, so to speak. And it wasn't until I wrote quite a few of them that I really sort of sat down one day and went, why am I writing this? Why am I typing all of this out? And that's when it sort of hit me in a sense, that intuitive hit was, you're writing a book. And I had to have a bit of a laugh, because over the years, as I said, I've always wanted to write a book, and every time that sort of information had come through to me, I always dismissed it. And I just laughed at the fact that this was another way of my intuition coming back around to going, hey, you're writing the book. And the way that I wanted to write and develop this book was, yes, it's a story of my life, but I wanted to show how listening to your intuition, and at times when you don't listen to your intuition, because there's many times I've done that as well, where you deflect and avoid and push it away, how that shaped my life. And the times when I did listen and follow my intuition, how that also helped uncover the layers of my own healing journey, meeting and releasing those fears and traumas, and coming out of my comfort zones, so to speak, and expansion within my own life, and how that also allowed me to go deeper in my own healing journey. And I kind of packaged that all together. That was my aim and my goal for this book. So, I wanted my readers to bring awareness to their own intuition as they're reading my story, and perhaps for some of those stories it may resonate with them or not, but still it should hopefully bring awareness to their own intuition, where they're going to start thinking about it, that curiosity starting to come within them, and that might actually develop and attune and strengthen as they continue their awareness with that. But not only that, knowing that they can essentially become the detective of their own healing journey. We all have a healing journey. We're all on one, whether we like it or not. And knowing that meeting and releasing the different layers doesn't have to be something that you deeply need to be by yourself, that you can have support, and you can have different areas to lean on, and knowing that you're not alone by hopefully reading my story.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. And you refer to yourself as the intuitive trauma release mentor. And what I saw in the reflection of your book was, after each chapter, which were like mini chapters within a chapter, it was an amazing read. It was an easy read. And I think that is overall for your book is fantastic. But what I really loved about it is, after each little chapter, it was a excuse me, it was you wrote like a little reflection or a pause on what, even as an author, you obviously writing your book, but your perspective on what that meant to you and how it could apply to other people.
Yeah. I wrote the book in these mini chapters. So there's 4 big parts in the book, and there's mini chapters within those parts. And one of the main reasons I did that is, people's lives are busy, and, I'm a mother of 4 and I know what it's like when you want to read something, but, sometimes other parts of your life may, at times may become that bit of a priority. And so knowing that you're still being able to retain in and draw in the complete story of what that chapter was, and at the end having those reflections and pauses, and at times that deep compassion for myself, knowing the reader can hopefully allow that deep compassion for themselves, to encompass that all in, which can also be somewhat of a quick read if you have a very busy life, and knowing that we can still read, which is sometimes, it can kind of be pushed aside, but knowing it's just so beautiful to sit down, whether it's reading in an actual paperback book or hardcover book, or on Kindle, or how anyone likes to read, and knowing that they can still happen in their life.
I love that. And, with intuition, obviously a lot of things captured my attention, but you were explaining different types of intuition. And what you said in one of your chapters was everyone can access intuition if you are willing to receive it. That's very profound because, we often refer to gut instincts. That's our intuition talking to us.
Yeah, and sometimes you could have your intuition talking to you and you don't want that to be the answer it gives you. Or, the intuition might only tell you a small step, and it's our mind, our ego that wants to know, well, where's this leading me? Where's this going to take me? How is that going to turn out at the end? And that's not what intuition's all about. For some of us, you might get the full information and that might scare you into thinking, no, I'm not ready for that. Or again, it's not the answer you want. And it will just keep coming around to eventually get your attention and draw your attention. And so sometimes intuition will give it to you in small little hits for you to take those little steps. Because, for some of us, taking that big step or seeing the end picture could very well overwhelm our nervous system. And allowing ourselves to take those little steps is also part of the journey that we need to be on to learn and expand within. So, we do have that intuition and we have that gut instinct, and an intuition can also expand beyond the gut instinct if we listen and willing to receive the information, listen to it, follow it. We can listen to it all we like, but if we're not following it, it's going to keep coming to us and louder and deeper and in all these different ways. So for us willing to receive it, we've also got to follow it.
And sometimes when you just said listen to it and follow it, there's probably, if we're hesitating, there's probably a fear associated with that.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think sometimes our egos may get in the way, but it's also there to protect us, of course.
Definitely, yes. Our ego is wanting to keep us safe. That's what it's wanting us to do. And sometimes for our ego to do these is keeping us in familiar. Sometimes our familiar is not always the greatest for us. And sometimes it is, but it's slowly wanting to expand ourselves. That's slowly coming out of our comfort zone. Our ego doesn't like us really going out of our comfort zone because that's the unknown. And that's where the fear can come in, because we are either in fear of the past. So something has happened in the past. So our ego goes, just in case this happens, we don't want to do that. And our fear can also be in fear of the future, in fear of the unknown. Some people really like to know every little step along the way. I know I've certainly been, that's certainly been me in the past as well. I like to know where I'm going. I like to know, I like to know all these little steps. And having something that's unknown can be scary, and that can bring on fear and doubt as well. And intuition doesn't really live in doubt. It's curiosity. That's where it lives. That's where it thrives. Yeah.
And part of that curiosity as well, for instance, if we have an intuition about a situation and okay, there's that fear there, but we start to go on that path and we think maybe it's going to go to the left, but it really could take a nosedive to the right, something totally unexpected, which could be better than we anticipate.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the beauty of intuition when it also comes sometimes into that unknown, is that it's unlimited within us. If we're willing to embark on that. So it's a very beautiful journey, as well as again, meeting those fears along the way, and also realizing how much strength and courage that you have within yourself when you're meeting and releasing them. It could be something, working in a new workplace. You might have this fear of, am I going to know what I'm doing? Am I going to make friends? Am I going to be comfortable in this work environment? You know, because there are already people working there and you're entering into a different environment. That itself can be scary and overwhelming for the system. And knowing, just following that intuition, if that's where it was leading you to go into that work environment, and even though it's scary and a bit out of that comfort zone, to actually do it and realizing you've done that first day, you know what I mean? You've gone that first hour and you've done that first day and you had that strength to be in there, and, you know, all these different things come to play that, you know, to something like that, in terms of meeting a fear for something like that, on how much it can make a massive difference.
My gosh, absolutely. And the fear part of it, you know, especially in your line of work, you have to, and obviously you're the expert on this, you would have to, in a split second, many times, judge a certain situation, and that instinct, that intuitiveness is going to result in something unknown, but you have to, I would imagine, follow that intuitiveness.
Yeah. Look, working in the policing field and working as a police officer, you're going to be faced with a lot of different scenarios, challenges, everything like that. You know, being a police officer here in Australia, and, you know I'm in a different country compared to you, but at the same time, no matter what, if you're in a first responder role, you're going to be entering situations which are going to be heightened, very much so. And there is going to be a lot of trauma around. People are going to be in various states of trauma. They're going to be in flight mode. They're going to be in fight mode. They're going to be in freeze mode. They're going to be in fall mode. And you yourself entering into that may also enter in those states as well. And so being a first responder is making sure that you can have this beautiful, flexible nervous system, and allowing yourself to be able to regulate yourself into a somewhat state in what can be a heightened situation, that then allows you to also really attune to your intuition whilst doing everything else in that moment. And when you're able to do that, I mean, at times we need to be in those modes, and that's what helps us be in those situations. And we also need to be able to know when that situation is somewhat ended, that we can regulate ourselves back into a safety zone, into that ventral vagal zone. Otherwise, for us that's how we get stuck into a fight, flight, freeze and fawn. That's how, the mental health and the post-traumatic stress and everything like that comes into a first responder. And when you're stuck in that trauma state, you're not going to be listening to your intuition. If so, you may not even hear it because you're so heightened. So yeah, it can be very challenging at times, but if you are constantly working on your nervous system, you will also be aware of when you're in those heightened states as to when you're able to regulate it. And then you'll also be able to know if you believe you're listening to your intuition, if it is your intuition or not, due to the states that you're in as well.
Right. And the other thing about that is, you mentioned hearing, but also listening. And we both know that those really are very two distinct things. I think many times when we hear something, we're not fully present to accept what is happening. Yeah. So therefore we're not listening, versus if we are listening with intent and purpose. And sometimes there's an art of dealing with that. And I know that you use different modalities to help you with that. Can you explain a little bit about emotional freedom techniques and the different modalities that you use? Like maybe you're at work, it's a stressful day, and you come home and you're like, oh, I need to take a break here.
Yeah, definitely. So my service now is as an intuitive trauma release mentor. But when working in the policing field, I would use emotional freedom techniques. I would use breath work, and I would use somatic work. when I would be working as a police officer. And so I incorporate that into my service now. So what emotional freedom techniques is, it's otherwise known as EFT or known as tapping. And what that is, it's a branch of energy psychology where you're using the end of your fingertips and tapping on the meridian points, which is primarily on your face, upper chest area, and your fingertips. And what that is doing, it's pretty much acupuncture but without the needles because you're using your fingertips. And what that is doing is it's sending signals to our amygdala, allowing our amygdala to know, amygdala in our brain, allowing it to know that it's safe, that doesn't need to set off the alarm for a perceived threat, to then also let our hippocampus know that it doesn't need to start responding in a reactionary way rather than a response way. So our amygdala perceives a threat and it sets an alarm. And when it thinks that we're in danger, and our hippocampus is this long-term memory. And what starts to happen, so we might have had a traumatic event that's happened to us and it's overwhelmed our system. And, for instance, a car accident, and that may have overwhelmed our system. So our mind, our hippocampus might start to perceive, something that might happen in the future that is a similar starting sequence to that car accident. And the amygdala goes, no, we're going to have a car accident again. Hippocampus reminds you of that car accident, and then you become in that traumatic state. So it brings you back to that memory in your body. And so EFT allows the rewiring of the neural pathways to go right now in this moment, you are safe, and allowing the change of the neural pathways. And so what it's essentially doing is allowing us to, it's not removing the trauma of what's happened, that whatever you've experienced with trauma has happened, but it's also helping us when it comes to our triggers. And it's helping us when it comes to the actual remembering of that incident as well, and allowing our body to know that we're safe here right now in this moment, even though something bad has happened to us in the past. And that trauma that we've experienced then doesn't need to be in the driver's seat of our life that decides to make the decisions, that we can still live this embodied life even though we have experienced that trauma. And so EFT does that, and it's a beautiful way we can incorporate into anything. You can use it for something that's happened with trauma. You can use it with stress. You can use it with anxiety. People use it for cravings. You can use it for phobias. It's a beautiful way to be able to regulate your nervous system. And you can do it subtly out in public. You can do the whole tapping sequence. However you like it is the most important way about it. And so part of my service as an intuitive trauma release mentor is using EFT. I also use breathwork. I'm a breathwork practitioner as well as a EFT practitioner. I'm also a somatic therapist, and I use somatic work with embodiment, so allowing that slight movement and attuning back into our bodies, creating safety in our bodies, and cultivating this relationship back with our bodies. The trauma that we experience, it remains in our bodies if it hasn't allowed the full flow of energy to flow out. And when that doesn't allow that release, it stays in. And so all of the work that I do, the breath work, the EFT, somatic embodiment, allows the full release of energy that could be stuck in our bodies from that trauma, and allows that release to come out. And as we do all of that within ourselves, we start to build a flexible, regulated nervous system. And when we build that flexible, regulated nervous system, I also help my clients with their intuition development, being able to attune to it, being able to strengthen into it as we, start to translate what the information is coming to us. Some people might see symbols, some people might just feel things, and being able to translate what that all means is a learning process. We've got to practice it. It's intuition is like a muscle, and we have to continuously practice it. Not like we wouldn't go to a gym and deadlift 100 kilos first off the bat. We would start deadlifting from a weight that we're comfortable with and slowly increase over time. And that's the same with our intuition. Once we're able to decode and translate what that information is telling us, that frequency becomes stronger and higher. And so you might start to receive more information, and allowing that deeper information within as you continue practicing it. So all of my work encompasses all of that. And it's essentially helping people on their healing journeys. I go at my client's pace to be able to help them. And I hope that my book also shows that my service is my medicine, and that the work I do with my clients is the work that I have done and continue to do on myself.
And I think that is so important to know. You are not only an intuitive trauma release mentor, you've cultivated your intuition in such a way, you practice the same things that you walk and coach your clients through, which leads me to my next question. And something that you mentioned is really that intuition does not have a time frame to work by.
That's right. Yeah. Our egos like to have a time frame.
Mm.
For that allows to create that story within, but our intuition doesn't. So, for me, in terms of wanting to write a book when I was younger and, thinking, I couldn't do it now because I was a police officer at that time, and, that's my career now. I thought it was out the window, I thought, I've already, that's the old Stacey, and I can't ever do that now. But, powers it be, my higher self is going, no, yes, actually, you are going to write a book, Stacey, and we'll eventually get you to write that book. And so it will come through other ways. So, for that alone, that is, at least over, 20, 25 years in the making of writing my first book before I actually got off my butt and did it,
Yeah, but you were directed and guided in such a way that maybe you didn't even expect. And in fact, my next question, I picked this out of the book and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is hysterical in a way, but very poignant for what you do. You've been referenced as a shit magnet to a powerhouse.
Yes. Yes. So here in Australia, in our first responder world, if you are the type of person that always turns up first to the biggest type of jobs, the most unique type jobs, at sometimes the most traumatic jobs that people have been in their working career, that was me. From the very first time that I tested off the parade ground and became a police officer and, was out working in uniform, whenever there was a very big job, high media profile job, very traumatic job, a very unique job or anything like that, I always just seemed to be the first person there, and, sometimes, people would make a joke. Oh, I don't want to be on the car with Stacey tonight because we're going to be busy and I don't want to be busy tonight, things like that. And, it was just this little term that they'd use in terms of being a shit magnet. I don't want to work with you because you're going to be busy attracting a lot of stuff that's going to be happening and don't want to deal with that right now. And I used to think it was a bad thing. Why am I always turning up to all these things? Why can't I have a break? It was a bit of a me moment, many moments throughout my policing career thinking that. And it wasn't until I was actually really doing the deep work on myself that I realized, what? Most of the times it is not about me at all. Some of those times it actually did help me have a bit more awareness on my own healing journey. And I actually did start to meet and release a lot of my own trauma as a result of the jobs that I'd been to, some right away, some as a slow burning process. But I also realized, again, I'm turning up to a point where people are in their most traumatic states of their life. And at times it's not about me, it's about them. And perhaps at that point in time, I could be the right person for that job to be able to help and support someone else in the most traumatic times of need. And sometimes it could be in helping them from a situation, but most of those times as well, it is about creating and holding that space for that person. Allowing that person to feel witnessed and heard in what has happened. I can't take away their pain, and I can't at times take away what has happened to them.
Right.
But what I can do when it comes to me investigating a job, investigating an incident, and investigating a crime is to create and hold space for that person whilst I'm doing it. Because for them, it may not be at that time, but for them later on, throughout their healing journey, that may also be a pinnacle point in their life. And that's when I realized it's not about me.
Wow, so beautifully said. Now, I have a somewhat off-topic question. You mentioned earlier about lifting 100 kilos. How much is 100 kilos?
I do not know how much 100 kilos is in pounds. I'll have to Google it. I know that it is possible because I have, I can deadlift 100 kilos, but in terms to pounds, I'm going to have a quick Google now. 220.46 pounds.
Oh boy, no way I could do that. Just saying, no way, absolutely no way. But who knows? I think the most I've ever lifted is 140 pounds on the bench. But back to the real subject. I'm like, I
think 140 pounds to the bench is amazing. So I think it's absolutely beautiful.
What do you think? And of course, I've read some of the reviews on your book. What do you think is the most important thing about your book that you could share with others? Like, does something instantly come to mind as far as a tip or a suggestion?
I believe the book will let you know that you're not alone. And I think that's the most really important bit. At times we could be experiencing many different things, whether it's something that you resonate with in the book or not. It will let you know that you're not alone. And it's really important to know when you're in the depths and in the darkness of a really bad cycle within yourself, because you feel that you're alone and you feel isolated and you feel that no one will know, no one will care. And you don't, for some people, they don't want to say anything because they don't want to bother anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really important tip to know that by reading it, whatever you're experiencing, you're not alone, and that you are valued and you are worthy and you do belong.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what do you think when somebody tries to access their intuition, maybe they're not familiar with it? And I'm going back to when I was a child, and I remember my parents saying something about your intuition and your gut instinct was when I really started to kind of tune into that. What do you think is one important measure to know about your intuition and how it guides you, kind of in a general sense? Like maybe it's someone contemplating, and we did somewhat talk about this, about the fear associated with going forward on a path. What do you think is another practice that when that person feels they are in in the fork in the road there, and do I go this way or do I go that way? What is one other piece of advice you can give to them? Because I think, especially with everything going on these last few years, a lot of times we're in such a turmoil state, and we need all the good advice we can get about that, I think.
Well, that's right. I mean, the last 2 years alone has shown that taking care of yourself and your nervous system needs to be a priority. Um, and for some people, they may not know how. And it will always, to be able to, I guess, decipher whether you are listening to your intuition or not is to always allowing yourself to feel in a regulated state. And when I say regulated, it's to feeling safe within yourself and feeling safe within your body. Some people might find that really easy to be able to get into, and some people it might take a little bit longer, depending on how they're feeling and how long they may be stuck in a trauma state. So that you can do that by yourself, or knowing that you can have someone to support you on that journey. But once you're in that regulated state, it will also be then bringing awareness to your intuition and how you may receive it. And so some people might think intuition is only being clairvoyant, and if you're not psychic in that way, then no, we don't have intuition. And so I guess it's also being aware that it's not just that, and that we can actually receive our intuition in different ways. So one is clairvoyant, clear seeing. So clair means clear, and so clairvoyant, clear seeing. You've got clairaudient, clear hearing. So clairvoyant, clear seeing, yes, you might see a picture, or you might see a symbol, or you might see, it is something in terms of visually seeing something, but it doesn't mean you see you might see a movie, but it doesn't always mean that. It could be just a little symbol or a letter or something. And you've got clairaudience, and it could be that in a whisper, or, a sound or something like that. Then you've also got clairsentience, clear feeling. And it's that feeling within yourself. Some people might be able to resonate more with that. And then you've also got claircognizance, that clear knowing, they just know within yourself. And so those are the 4 ways that we can receive our intuition. And once you're aware as to which is your dominant clair, we always have one that's dominant, and as we strengthen and attune to our intuition more, the other clairs might start to come around, and you might see them as well, or hear them, or anything like that, but they'll always be secondary, and it might just be moments afterwards, but you'll always have one primary one. And so if you're aware and to know what your primary one is, you can start to actually really take notice of it more, and start honing in on that more, so you can start to really listen to it and then follow it. And again, if we keep practicing that and practicing, it can start to strengthen. You might start to translate what those symbols mean, if that's what you see, or sounds, or the feelings within you, and knowing that it's a beautiful journey in itself to do that. And people will be worried about whether they get it wrong. And you know what?
Mm-hmm.
We are imperfectly perfect human beings. Our job here in life isn't to make sure we get everything right and perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. That's what we create in our minds. Knowing that it's okay to just try, practice.
Just try, practice. Yeah. I love that. Oh my gosh, Stacey, this has been such an amazing podcast. I can't thank you enough for being here. And I want to thank all of my listeners currently on the Wisdom Audio app. I do see some familiar names. So thank you so much, each and every one of you. You are so special. And I don't know if you have a couple more minutes.
Yeah, sure.
I would like to, we have time for one guest to pop up on the Wisdom Audio app. If you have a quick question for our amazing guest, Stacey, I will share with you, you had mentioned symbols. And I realized yesterday, whenever the 19th of the month comes along, yesterday was the 2nd anniversary of my dad's passing. And, and of course, I feel that sadness. I recognize that. I knew I was going to have to give myself some extra time just to work on my self-care. But I also realized a deeper meaning that triggers me with the number 19. 19 happens to also be the date on July 19th when my son had his life-threatening injury. So my dad passed on September 19th, 2020. 10 months later, my son had his life-threatening injury on July 19th. So, in fact, a couple months ago, I wrote in my journal, 19 is really bothering me. Excuse me. And I wasn't sure at the time, but now it's like, and I did practice some EFT yesterday. So I started to practice that, and I'm like, oh, like it made more sense to me. So when you were talking about intuition, it really, I thought back to yesterday and, everything that I was feeling about that number. So it's okay to pause and reflect. And, I reminded myself, my dad would not want me to wallow. He would want me to continue on. I also reminded myself that my son's okay. Yes, we have some issues, but I am blessed and grateful that he's doing well. So I just wanted to share that with everyone because I think that's so important. We all go through those things. So thank you, Stacey. I so appreciate your being here today, and I hope you will definitely consider coming back. We need to chat more about your book.
First off, thank you for sharing that story. Just just witnessing you and all of that, and in deep gratitude to share that, and for me to be in that space for that. And secondly, I'd love to always be back whenever you want me. I'm more than happy to. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for even having me here.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much. Hey, Wisdom, again, thank you so much for being here today. So appreciate my amazing listeners. Remember, if you have a story to share, you can always click on, click on my profile on Wisdom. That's my Truly Your VA website, but you can send me a contact form through there and let's have that chat, because guess what? If you have a story to share, it's that important. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you again real soon. Hey, everyone on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're going to be listening to the Stories That Inspire Us podcast, which of course is now on iHeartRadio and Amazon Music. Your story is that important. Share your intuition with the world, because if you're thinking, yeah, I might have a story, guess what? You do have a story. So, of course, share it. One last question. How can our viewers and listeners get in contact with you?
Yes, so if I am mostly predominantly on Instagram, so my profile under there is @_ Stacey Webb, STACEYWEBB. I do also have a Facebook page under Stacey Webb, and I have a website, www.staceywebb.com.au, where you can view any of my services, my one-on-ones, my group services. I do have a connection membership for nervous system healing, and my book is on my website, or you can also get it on Amazon and any other online leading bookstores for my book, The Intuitive Detective.
Wonderful. And of course, I will make sure that all of your information gets in the show notes. And by the way, if you do purchase it through Amazon or wherever you purchase the book through, please make sure to leave a review, because those reviews help the authors in so many different ways. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Again, my name is Janice, the host of Stories That Inspire Us / the author series, and we shall continue on because we need to connect to more to our intuitiveness. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Bye for now.